Well, yesterday we talked about the American League. Today, Millard Thomas of Locked on Diamondbacks and I are going to be making our ridiculously early National League picks. Who's going to be in there? We'll find out. This is a Locked on MLB, Locked on Diamondbacks crossover. Let's get it started. Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to Locked on MLB and Locked on Diamondbacks crossover. This is the podcast where we talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. I have been a member here of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day for the last 5 seasons. I'm a television producer. I've done a lot of stuff, but I'm here and I'm loving talking about baseball with you all. And now I was going to say once a week, but apparently it's twice a week this week. And sorry, I'm wearing the same thing I wore yesterday. I'm bringing this Loop right over there. He's the host of Locked on Diamondbacks. Introduce yourself to the fine people.
Yeah, if this podcast goes as long as the first one we did, Sully, you might be my crossover podcast for the whole week. Let's make sure that happens. I'm Millard Thomas, host of Locked on Diamondbacks, the guy who likes to cut up one podcast into 3. Please follow us on all your streaming platforms. Follow us on YouTube, Locked on Diamondbacks on there as well. And please hit subscribe on the YouTube. I already said that, but please follow us on Twitter at CreatorThomas24 for my personal account. Locked on Diamondbacks on both Twitter and Instagram. Just type the show name into the little search bar handle, and I'm sure you can find us.
Yeah, find us at Locked on MLB Pods on Twitter and Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Well, if you listen to the epic yesterday, which was about as long as Avatar, we talked a lot about the Oscars right up at the top, but we also broke down our very, very early predictions of the American League. And I think the one thing we could walk away from my predictions was I think it's the good folks at Locked On Astros, H-Town and Eric. You're going to have a fun year this year. And everyone over there at Locked On Angels and Locked On A's and Locked On Tigers and Locked On Royals and Locked On Red Sox and Locked On Orioles, buckle up. We're going to have a bumpy ride. And Bryce Patrick of Locked On Rangers. Look, I got to make this clear.
Uh-oh.
I love Bruce Bochy. He was my dad's favorite manager. And I would love to see him do well. He's already going to the Hall of Fame, obviously, as a manager. Took the Padres to the World Series, won 3 titles with the Giants. I would love it if he joined Sparky Anderson and Tony La Russa as the only managers to win a World Series in both the American League and the National League. That'd be fun. I don't think it's going to happen.
Oh, my God.
Because I think when you keep signing players, well, if healthy, he's this. If healthy, he's that. If healthy, he's this. If healthy, he's a cat. But do you know what? I don't see it happening. I grew up a diehard Boston Red Sox fan my whole life. I think they have a shot at 90 losses. I don't think they're going to lose 90 games. I just think they're going to be thoroughly mediocre. But I could certainly see a scenario where things start falling apart and we start pining for the glory days of Bobby Valentine. Okay, it will never be that.
Wow.
Okay,
Wow.
So this isn't about who I'm rooting for. For God's sakes, I said the Yankees were going to be a 90-something win team.
If you listen to the last podcast, I'm hoping Angels fans and Rangers fans duck because Sully did a straight-up drive-by shooting. Bryce Patrick, please write my name down on the bandwagon. I would gracefully like to join the Rangers bandwagon because I don't think they'll be as bad this year. But Sully, I know you don't like.
And also, by the way, our buddy Nick at Locked On White Sox, he has a great show, by the way. If you listen to all these shows. It is your team every day. Nick at Locked On White Sox has been killing it there. But I think the White Sox may be killing him this year. I'm just saying. But hey, let's talk about the National League today.
There we go. Hey.
The little National League, which I think there's more parity in the American League. But I think there's one surefire best team in the American League. The Astros, I think, are heads and shoulders the best team in the American League. Then there's a bunch of flawed good teams and flawed bad teams. I think the haves and have-nots in terms of talent is more striking in the National League. But I think it's harder to pick a potential champion. So why don't we go in reverse geographical order? We started with the American League East yesterday. Let's start, Millard, with the National League West today.
Oh, My favorite division,
I
Sully
know.
Baseball. So, like yesterday, we're going to go through each division. Sully's going to try and guess the order that FanDuel has these teams. Then we're going to discuss our favorite team to win the division, the team that we think is going to be the biggest letdown. So, Sully Baseball, starting from the bottom, going to the top, who do you think will be the worst team in the division?
Hold your ears, Paul, from Locked On Rockies. The Rockies are in the basement. The
Mm.
Rockies are in the bottom. Um, I think I'm in the rotation for the Rockies this year. I think it's going to be rough, and there's a distinct chance the Rockies may have the worst record in baseball this year. Number 4,
Don't do it. Don't do it.
looking up at you, Dad, the San Francisco Giants. Not thrilled with the Giants. Their 107 win season of 2021 is looking more and more like a fluke. They thought they got Correa. They thought they got Judge. They made a bunch of peripheral moves that were all very good, but they would be very good if they complemented the one big move. I don't they lost Carlos Rodon. I'm not thrilled with this team and the direction of this team, which brings us to number 3. And this is going by well, how I think the FanDuel is doing, but this is also how I think it's going. I think the talent on the Diamondbacks is going to bring them to third place. I think the FanDuel is going to look at any discussion of potential rookie of the year in the National League is going to include a conversation with the Diamondbacks, who I forget who told me this, but for a while caught the Giants at one point in the second half of the year. There is a lot of young talent on that Diamondbacks team, and I think that they are going to be neck and neck with San Francisco. Now, keep in mind, this is how I think FanDuel will predict it. I think FanDuel has Los Angeles at 2 and San Diego at 1. I think Rockies bottom. Then I do think Giants will be 4th. I do think Arizona will be 3rd. I will pick against the Dodgers of the division when proven wrong. I think the Padres are going to finish 2nd. I think the Dodgers are going to finish 1st, but I think they're both going to finish between 95 and 100 wins. So it will be kind of sort of like what happened the year when the Giants won 107 and Los Angeles won 106. I think they're both very good teams. Even though the Dodgers have some holes, you're seeing what they're doing now. They brought in Peralta the other day. They're going to just fill in the holes. They've got a
Sad.
ton of talent in their farm system. They will make do. And I think, and what they won like 112 something games last year. So
Choked
even if
up.
they drop 10 games from last year, you're still talking about a 100-win team. I think they're going to be between 95 and 100 wins. I think the same for San Diego. I think only 2 or 3 games are going to separate those two when all is said and also when all is done. But I think it'll be Dodgers, Padres, D-backs, Giants, Rockies. But I think FanDuel has the Padres at top.
You were close, Sully. I mean, you picked the Dodgers personally to be at the top, but you think the Padres, according to FanDuel, will be at the top. You should have went with your personal prediction because
Okay.
the Dodgers are actually pretty big favorites to win the NL West at minus
Really?
140. So that's pretty big. They're at minus odds to win the division. You got the
Oh, that's
Padres.
interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. You got the Padres at number 2 plus 140. Then your dad's favorite team, number 3 at plus 1200. This is where it gets disrespectful. Plus 4,000 for the D-backs to win the division. So they think the Orioles, the Red Sox, the Tigers all have better odds than the D-backs to win the division. They think the D-backs have the same chances of winning their division as the 4th place team, as the Royals do, as the 5th place team.
But hold on, Millard. That's because there's no Dodgers in the American League Central. There's no Padres in the American League Central. Look me in the eye. Look me right in there and tell me you think the Diamondbacks are going to win a division that also features Los Angeles and San Diego. There is a scenario that has Kansas City winning the Central. That is the Cleveland Guardians, the youngest team in baseball, uh, has a learning curve. The Twins fall apart. The White Sox are catastrophe, and the Tigers forgot to field the major league team, and the Royals win the division with an 82 and 80 record. There is no scenario. Even if you see a regression, the way the Giants went from 107 wins to 81 wins, there's no way that both the Dodgers and the Padres are going to have that big fallback. So no, I think that's right. The
So the Red
Diamondbacks,
Sox deserve to have double the odds the D-backs do to win the
yes,
division, even though they have the
yes,
Yankees, the
because
Blue Jays, the Rays?
there's no scenario that has the Diamondbacks better than both the Padres and the Dodgers, and you know it.
Why is there a scenario where the Red Sox are better than the Yankees, Rays, or Blue Jays?
The Yankees bullpen could fall apart. The Blue Jays could have two mediocre halves of the season, and the Rays could have another year where everyone's in a full body cast.
Well,
There's no team as good as the Padres or the Dodgers in the AL Central or the AL East for that matter.
and then the AL Central, yeah, the Royals are fighting for against the Guardians, and they're still plus 4,000. All they have to do is beat the Guardians. They're still plus 4,000. You're telling me that's as hard as the D-back trying to win the division at plus 4,000, trying
No,
to
I
take
think
down.
the Royals have a better shot than the D-backs. I
So
think
why
the
shouldn't their
D.
odds be better?
I don't know what the hell. What am I, Robert De Niro in Casino? What the hell do I know?
'Cause I think
I,
if you have a team with a real Cy Young
I don't
candidate, Zach
understand how
Allen.
odds work. I don't. I'm
Okay.
not a gambler.
I'm
I'm
just
not a.
looking. I just look at a team with a potential Cy Young Award winner in Zach Allen, a potential MVP in Ketel Marte, the potential Rookie of the Year in Corbin Carroll. I know you got two teams at the top of the division who are stacked, but the D-backs have talent too, and you can't tell me a team with that much talent should have worse odds to win their division than some other teams that we know have no chance of making the playoffs.
Because
Yeah.
no, I think the Diamondbacks have a chance to make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they have a chance of being better than both San Diego and Los Angeles. All right,
Well,
that's what I say.
I don't think they have that chance either, but I think it should be better than plus 4,000. I think that just plus. I just think when you have them at plus 4,000 and then you have the Giants at plus 1,200, when we both agree the D-backs are better, they don't even think
Yes,
they're in the same stratosphere as the Giants, as the San Francisco Giants,
that's
even though we
true.
both think they have talent. That's why I think
Yes.
they're just being too disrespectful.
Look, I think you're being disrespectful to FanDuel and put that banner up there. You should be
All right.
disrespectful to the number one sports book in all of America. Do you want our new customers get a new sweat first bet up to $1,000? That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and easy to use. And you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same game parlay. That's French for speak. Don't miss out on your chance to get the no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to fanduel.com/locked on. That's fanduel.com/locked on to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sporting bet partner of the NBA. Man, things getting heated.
Man,
Things getting heated on this
plus
episode here.
4,000. Sully
Yeah.
disrespecting the D-backs, even though
I
he didn't
did.
think they're
I
better than the Giants.
Hey, I think the D-backs have a chance to go to the playoffs.
Does
I
not win the
do.
division.
I just don't think they have a shot at the division.
Man, injuries, that's all they'll do. Everyone on the Dodgers and Padres will get hurt. And then there'll be the D-backs left standing.
That's what it'll take. It'll take that. It'll take a Dark Knight Rises stadium situation to have that happen.
What
All right,
division you want to do next, buddy?
Central.
All right, let's look at
Because
the Central.
this might be the weirdest one to do.
All
This might
right,
be the weirdest one to do.
start from the bottom for
On
me,
the
sir.
bottom, let me think. I think, oh God, and it breaks my heart to say this because it's one of my favorite franchises in baseball. It's actually one of the teams I want. Obviously, native New England, I want the Red Sox to win, but there's some teams I'm dying to see win. I'm dying to see Seattle win. I would like to see the Angels win because of Mike Trout. I so want the Padres, the Padres to win. That's the one I want to see win. But the Pirates, I want to see the Pirates win. First World Series I ever watched was the 1979 World Series. We are family, but we are family done
You're
here.
famine.
We are famine. The Pirates and the Rockies have legitimate shots of being the worst teams in baseball. I think they're both 100-loss teams, and the Pirates are in the absolute cellar. And who's thankful that the Pirates are in their division are Cincinnati, who you have to go all the way back to 2021 to see a year when they were a playoff contender. Hell, they were a wild card team in September of 2021. And look what's happened since. Nothing but badness. Nothing but badness for the Cincinnati Reds. Okay. Third in there, the Cubs. I think the Cubs are going to make some improvements. I think you're going to see some of the young players on the team. The addition of uh, Swanson at shortstop. Um, I don't see them as a playoff contender yet, but I see some of the pieces that they acquired in their fire sale making sense. And this, by the way, this is FanDuel's, and so far, I
Mhm.
think FanDuel's is going to match mine exactly.
Okay.
A couple of years ago, the Brewers went into the postseason with the most exciting and the deepest starting pitching staff, but it turns out it was the Braves bullpen that did them in. I think the Brewers, who, by the way, finished one game behind the eventual National League champion Philadelphia Phillies last year, I think the Brewers still could pitch and they have some talent, but and I think they're gonna have a winning season and be on the periphery of a wild card. But I think that they're in second place, and I think the clear winner, maybe by 10 games, is going to be St. Louis. And not because I think they're a juggernaut, but I think they're very good. And I think the Brewers are the only team that have a realistic shot at a winning record, and I think they'll be low 80s. I think the Cardinals are going to be low 90s to mid 90s, and I think we'll win the division by 10 games. And the Arenados and the Goldschmidts of the world, plus this never-ending pipeline of young players, I think the Cardinals have this division licked.
Because we argued so much and never got to say Colorado Rockies plus 15,000 win their division in the NOS. I didn't even give a chance to give analysis. I just got so heated on seeing the D-backs. I just saw all red when I see that plus 4,000. But Sully, you hit the nail on the head. The Cardinals are the third biggest favorites of any
Yeah,
team to win their division at
yeah.
minus 115. Shock to no one. Brewers at plus 145 second. Cubs plus 550 third. And then the Pirates and Reds are actually tied for the worst odds in the division at plus 6,000.
I think the team that could be the biggest surprise in that could be the Cubs. I think it would require the Cardinals having a huge regression and the Cubs just playing a lot of their kids and just sort of throwing spaghetti at the wall. I would love the Pirates or the Reds to have a resurgence. I just don't see, uh, and the fact that there isn't a juggernaut in the division, I think may give a team a little bit of hope. I just don't see what direction it would be in. When I was talking about like, oh, I think the A's are going to be better than I think people are going to think they are, that's still, I'm only seeing them being like a 74 win team. It's like, I'm not expecting them to go on and win the division. I look at this Reds team and I look at this Pirates team going, these are minor league teams. This isn't even a major league product they're putting on the field. I would love to be proven wrong because I love the tradition of baseball in Cincinnati and in Pittsburgh. I don't see it. I think the Cubs are the only realistic team. And the other thing that could realistically happen is the Brewers pitching staff solidifies and the injuries go away and Christian Yelich is never going to be the MVP that he was a few years ago. But what if he was good?
What
Good
if?
is better than bad. What if Christian Yelich has a good year? He's not going to be a great player, but what if they trade a bad player for a good player? So, I think St. Louis has so much talent it might be tough, but we've seen it happen. Everyone in their moose was pitching Chicago last year. We've seen teams fall regress to the mean. Milwaukee has a shot if they avoid injuries. Chicago has a shot if the young players gel. I don't think it's going to happen because I like the talent on St. Louis too much.
Let me say this. The Reds, they absolutely suck. They will be in the bottom of the basement in that
Okay.
division. The Pirates, they suck too, but I kind of like that lineup. I don't think the Pirates will be as bad. Now, their over-under win totals like 67.5. I might bet that they could get to 68, 69 games. I don't think the Pirates will be a complete dumpster fire like the Cincinnati Reds this year. I'm kind of in on the Pirates being just a little frisky this year, but really amounting to nothing. When I look at the rest of that division, I don't. The Cubs, they finished last year strong. They made some interesting offseason additions where they gave the bag to Dansby Swanson, brought in a whole bunch of flyers and the Cody Bellingers and the Trey Mancinis of the world, but they might have let their best position player in Wilson Contreras leave to the team that's going to win that division, the St. Louis Cardinals, who have two of the top three MVP candidates from last year and Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado. They got a couple of rookies as well. Of course, the Cardinals are the odds-on favorite to win that division. I think they will. I think the Pirates will be a little bit better than what people expect. I don't think the Cubs will be as good as people expect. And the Brewers are a team that I'm just not in on, Sully, because I forgot about this little trade this offseason too. The Brewers traded away Hunter Renfroe to your favorite team, the Los Angeles Angels, this offseason. So that will be a move that helps out the Angels. And this Brewers team, like, they just have let so many bullpen arms go the last couple of years. Of course, with the Hader deadline move last year, they let guys like Boxberger and Rogers leave this offseason free agency. Trevor Gott, like, I'm just not in on this Brewers team. Like Christian Yelich, if you're telling me we're turning back the clock, like you said, and this was Yelich a few years ago, then I might have some belief in this Brewers team. But they've just been a team that's been so disappointing ever since basically Yelich has won that MVP. They've gone downhill year after year. And at one point, like as recently as like last year or 2020, I thought they were a true dark horse contender when you had the Brandon Burns, or when you had the Corbin Burns, the Brandon Woodruff, and that Freddie Peralta all clicking. They still have arguably the best rotation in baseball with that 1-2-3. Woodruff starting to come down a little bit, but I just hate that lineup. They can never produce enough offense to help out that rotation. The Cubs might be a little bit friskier. It might close that gap between them and the Brewers, and might even finish second place. But I think this is going to be a division that just sends one team to the playoffs. That will be the division winner, St. Louis Cardinals.
I have to address that. I do know the Pirates have Cruz. I do know the Pirates have Hayes,
Mm-hmm.
and it sounds like they're trying to extend Reynolds instead of trade him off. So I
Mm-hmm.
understand there are potential players on the team to build
Hutchin?
around, but I just don't. When they all become stars, then I'll listen.
McCutchen? He's back.
It's good to have McCutcheon back. It's nice, but it's clearly towards the end of his career. We need a
Yeah.
time machine. We need 2013 McCutcheon back.
They got
You know?
Carlos Santana, Rich Hill. Rich Hill's like 45, still going.
Yeah. I'll believe it when I see it.
Okay. Yeah.
All right,
That.
let's move on to the East. Let's move on to the NL East, because this is also a division that is they had 200-win teams and the National League champion.
And so, yeah. So start from the bottom for me, Sully.
The Washington Nationals are in the bottom.
Of course.
Then things get interesting.
Hmm.
Okay, I'm gonna just go by how FanDuel is gonna do it. Okay,
Okay.
fourth Marlin. I think
Mhm.
it'll be fourth Marlins, third the defending champion Phillies,
Mhm.
second the defending division champion Braves, and I think they have the Mets at the top. Am I right?
Sully, you're spot on again. Mets plus 135 favorites. Braves, though, plus 140. So just a slight hair behind
They're
the Mets.
good. They're
Yeah,
really good. The Braves are really, really good.
really good. I mean, they won the World Series as recently as 2 years ago. So FanDuel thinks they're
And they
right
were
there.
better last year than the team that won the World Series.
And they might even be better next year.
Yeah.
Phillies plus 300 at third. Marlins tied with the D-backs at plus 4,000. I guess they're using that Sully logic of they have no chance to win that division because of the 2 or 3 juggernauts ahead of them. And then, of course, the Washington Nationals tied with the Oakland A's for having the worst odds in all of baseball at plus 25,000.
All right, listen to me, good folks in Great Britain who are running the Miami Marlins, Locked On Marlins. I don't think the Marlins are without a chance. I don't. I think the Marlins do have a chance. I think the Marlins have a chance because they acquired Johnny Cueto.
Oh, my God.
They have listen. No, just listen to me.
That was the first name you said.
No, they have the Cy Young Award winner, Sandy Alcantara.
Mm-hmm.
They have Trevor Rogers. They have Jesus Luzardo. They have Braxton Garrett, Johnny Cueto. They have a decent bullpen. They acquired the American League batting champion to put into a lineup where, yes, they had a terrible season from Jorge Soler last year, but he could come back. They have Jazz Chisholm. They have some other players there that could rebound. Do I think they're going to win the division? No. Do I think they're going to have a winning season? Yes. I think they've got a good pitching staff. I think their lineup is a little bit better. And they are going to be a pain in the derriere all season long. And I think they have not an outside chance to be a playoff team. I think they have a legit chance to be a playoff team.
I want you to put it on the line right now. Marlins or D-backs? If you had to pick one team to make the playoffs, who would you pick?
I think they're both close.
Yeah, they're pretty
I
close.
think they're both close to each other.
I got the Nerf gun to your head, Sully.
Nerf gun ahead, I'd probably say the D-backs because I think they have a more their talent is a little more major league proven.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like the talent on the Marlins. I think there are 4 winning teams in that division. I think the addition of Trey Turner makes the defending champion Phillies better than they were last year. I think the Mets are just salivating at the mouth to put together a super team, and the Braves are looking that they're mad that they lost last year to Philadelphia. I think they're looking to dust themselves off and take another shot. I'm really, really perplexed of who I'm going to pick to win the division. I don't think there's a surefire one, and I'm going to say the Braves right now because the Braves have so much talent top to bottom. They're so confident, and I just think that even with the loss of Dansby Swanson, they're just dripping with talent. The Murphy acquisition gives them another a layer. They've signed their players long term so they can look around and say we're going to be here for a while. But I think there's a potential of 490 win teams in the division.
Marlins.
I think the Marlins have very good pitching and an improved offense. I think more often than not, the Marlins are going to have as good, if not better, starting pitcher than the opposition. And when you do that throughout a season, especially when you when you have a balanced schedule, so they'll play tomato cans like the Rockies, tomato cans like the Reds, tomato cans like the Pirates, as often as they play tomato cans like the Nationals. If it was still division centric, then I don't think they'd have a chance at that because they'd be playing more games against the Mets, the Phillies, and Atlanta. But because it's spread out as much, you put most games against the Giants, they're going to have a better starting pitcher. All games against the Rockies, all games against the Reds, all these teams are going to be playing more often than they did last year. I absolutely think the Marlins are going to have a winning year. Put that on your pipe. And I think they have, if everything breaks right, they could be a 90-win team. And guess what they also did? What's the one thing that teams have to do that when they do it, they go to the World Series almost immediately?
What is it?
They got rid of Don Mattingly.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Scram.
That's a fun conspiracy.
Well, it's been
proven.
I've got the data to back it up.
Look.
So I think Atlanta is going to win the division, but I think it's going to be a scrum. And I think you're going to see all the wild card teams are going to be all those. Well, I think the Mets and the Phillies are definitely going to be wild card teams. And then you know what? I think then you have the Padres. So I guess like you're going to have to wait. You're going to be fighting. The Phillies are going to be I mean, I don't know. This is the top of the National League is so much better, and then the bottom is so dreadful. Look at how we're breaking down the National League. There are very few mediocre teams in the National League. They're either that's a playoff contender. Or, oh man, what are they even doing? So I mean, that's the nature of the National League. And I think I like the Marlins more than you do. But I like the fact that they improved their offense and they still have good pitching. When you have a team that pitches well, has a better offense, and Don Mattingly is not employed by them, good things happen to those teams. And I think that, God, you could convince me the Mets, you can convince me the Braves, you can convince me Philadelphia. But I'm going to just go with Atlanta just because of the talent. But I think it's going to be, if it's the Mets, I certainly wouldn't be stunned.
Look, I love that Marlins rotation, one of the best in baseball, but they just added one more real major leaguer in that lineup. They pretty much only have two guys I respect in Jazz and Luis Arias. And Arias is mostly a singles, doubles kind of guy. So he's not going to be driving in a whole bunch of runs. And now with Jazz Chisholm moving to center field, I don't know how that's going to affect his offense. So right now, I love the Marlins pitching staff, but I think it's still going to be one of the worst offensive teams in baseball, and that's what's going to hold them back. We don't even got to talk about the Nationals because they're all the way over there.
They're a minor league team. I gave a lot in yesterday's podcast. I gave a lot of love to the Nationals. Ted Lerner, the former owner of the team who died over the weekend. The fact that the city of Washington had a glorious decade of division winners and a title. He turned around the baseball culture for at least a decade. Tons of respect for that. And maybe in a few years, the players they acquired, because they got tons of prospects for, Trey Turner and Max Scherzer and Juan Soto and everybody. But let's face it, this team, it's going to be a minor league team for a couple of years there.
Yeah, they could have got a lot of prospects. Maybe if they did separate deals for Scherzer and Trey Turner, but just throwing in Trey Turner in that Max Scherzer deal definitely wasn't a good, smart business decision by the Washington Nationals. The Phillies, I love their offseason. Of course, getting Trey Turner, massive amount of money on that contract, but he's a stud. He's a real, legit MVP type player.
Yes,
legit all-star plus player. I like bringing in Taijuan Walker too. But we got to remember with the Phillies why I don't think why they might still be around the same win total as last year and not really improve, I think, in terms of record, is because Bryce Harper did undergo Tommy John surgery and he's going to miss like half the season. So there will be no MVP Bryce Harper until maybe the All-Star break or after that. So maybe once he comes back, this Phillies team will take off, but I think they'll probably still be around an 88 to 92 win team and still be around
bad. Still not bad.
They can still do what they did last year once they get Bryce Harper back. So I wouldn't be upset at all at that. And then I'm going to ride with you on the Braves to win that division because I love their decision-making when it comes to business decisions. I don't love the Sean Murphy decision as much because I think I also like Willing Contreras as a 20 home run guy. I think that was a nice pickup for the Milwaukee Brewers we talked about earlier. But for the Braves, they just have so much young talent. Like, they are okay with Dansby Swanson leaving when you bring in a Michael Harris and a Spencer Strider, two rookies from last year who are probably going to pay maybe next year, maybe the year after, if they have another good season. Like, the Braves are not afraid to pay their young players early, which I think is going to be a trend we see more in baseball. Why not, instead of waiting for them to be 29 years old, hitting free agency, and then I give them a $300 to $400 million contract, just pay them when they're 23, 24, 25. First couple years in Major League Baseball, if you already see flashes of all-star potential, give them $150 million over 10 years. And guess what? They might sign that deal. So I think the Braves are making smart business decisions. I think the New York Mets mostly are just kind of running back the same team from last year. I think if you're making the argument
with Verlander.
With Verlander, I think that's the argument. Maybe you think Verlander gives you a more healthy Jacob deGrom, but Verlander also missed time last year with injury. So he might just be Verlander. He just might be deGrom 2.0 in the New York Mets. I think, like I've said a lot, I think their Japanese pitcher, Senga, will be the X factor just because when those guys come over, you never know how good they are. Like, if he's like a Tanaka level good in the middle of that rotation, then that's going to be huge for the New York Mets. So it's going to be Mets and Braves as a coin flip as we get down to it. But I think I'm leaning Braves just because I like the infrastructure of that team a little bit more. And the way that they're developing talent, their young talent over there, I think I'm going to trust the Braves to win that division. And the Miami Marlins, I also did forget. They traded, I know, of course, they acquired Luis Arias. They traded Pablo Lopez. So I did like that move for the Minnesota Twins because they had one of the worst rotations in baseball. We didn't bring that up on the last pod. I forgot about
I think that it helped both teams.
Yeah. It was a win-win move.
Yeah. Okay, now we've done these ridiculously early division picks.
Yeah.
Let's do the ultimate exercise in stupidity. What is our ridiculously early World Series prediction?
Man, you want to do that on today's pod? Do you want?
Why not? What do we talked yesterday about freaking Avatar and Top Gun? I mean, let's go. Let's just. Well, this isn't our official pick. This is our right here. What do you think?
Right here, just because I just want to pick this team out the American League every year until they prove me wrong. The Houston Astros, I'm picking again to go to the World Series. They're just so freaking dominant in the regular season. They get to the postseason, last year? Did they lose maybe one playoff game en route to the World Series? Maybe they didn't lose any. They
didn't lose it. The only two games they lost were in the World Series, games 1 and 3 of the World Series.
Yeah, they're a freaking juggernaut. Jose Altuve still looks like the best second baseman in baseball. They have one of the most stacked lineups. They just added Jose Abreu. Even after losing Verlander, like we talked about, they still have 3 or 4 legit number 2, number 1 starters in that rotation. young guys coming through that bullpen as well. Love the Houston Astros as my first World Series pick out the American League. Then out the National League, I'm picking a team that almost made it last year because they got all the way to the championship series but didn't make it to the World Series, and that is the San Diego Padres. As much as I hate them out my own division, I can't help that I love that dude, X-Man Xander Bogaerts. I think he's going to be a huge addition. You also get a full season of Juan Soto with the Manny Machado, with Xander Bogaerts, and of course, you eventually expect Fernando Tatis Jr. back. I think he's going to miss like 50 games or something like that. So he'll still have probably around 100 games played as well this season. Darvish, Joe Musgrove. I like this Padres team. They could hit, they could pitch. I think they have a perfect balance of everything. The Dodgers are going to be right there. The two NL East teams are going to be right there. But Xander Bogaerts, that winning culture coming over from Boston. I'm picking Padres versus Houston Astros in the World Series.
That's my pick too.
Wow, look at this guy.
Yeah, even though I think the Dodgers are going to win the division, I think the Padres are going to make it through there. Let's make this interesting though.
Okay.
Pick an American League pennant winner,
Okay.
but you can't pick the Astros.
I can't pick the Astros. If I can't pick the Astros, I'm going to ride with the team that's been trying to get over the hump and back to the World Series since 2009. Carlos Rodon is the difference maker. I'm going with the New York Yankees. And also just because it's like, if you don't pick the Yankees, if you're telling me I can't pick the Astros, it's like, who else out the American League do you want me to pick? It's either the Blue Jays or it's the Seattle Mariners. I think there's it's like a 4-team race for the American League pennant. I just think the American League talent pool, like you're talking about the NL, there's the haves and have-nots. I feel more about that in terms of the American League. I feel like the top is really good with the Mariners, the Astros, the Yankees, and I guess the Cleveland Guardians and the Blue Jays. And I guess you could put the Rays, and then everyone else. I'm like, they're like basically the teams from last year that made the playoffs. I think are going to be the favorites to make the playoffs again. And then everyone else, I'm like, they could potentially have a top 5 pick coming to them this season.
I think it's going to be the Blue Jays. I think it's going to be the Astros, but if I can't pick the Astros, I would pick the Blue Jays. I think they, as I said, they had a lot of disappointing years last year, and Montoya was not having the team that well. Playing that well the first half. I think there's a lot of talent on that team. I think they're better this year. But this is just the pick. If I can't pick the Astros, I just think the Astros are so much better than everybody else. So I mean, that's why I want to throw that in there.
Yeah, the Astros are basically the baseball version of like the Golden State Warriors or the Kansas
right
City
now,
Chiefs.
yeah.
You
Right
should
now,
just pick them against the field every year until the
yeah.
wheels fall off.
And I think the Padres, Dodgers, Mets, Braves, and Phillies and Cardinals all have legit shots to win the pennant. And if you said any of those names, I would have been perfectly fine with them. The star power in San Diego, as you said, they're going to have Soto for the whole year. They're going to have Bogaerts for the whole year. I mean, they're adding to the team. They re-signed Darvish to stick around. I like the team. I think they're good. Ha-Seong Kim had a good year last year. Musgrove had a good year for them. I think that in a short series with Los Angeles, I think they could win. It happened last year. And Bob Melvin has a chance to finally win his championship. You have those two managers, Bob Melvin and Buck Showalter, this year's Dusty Baker, that they've done everything but win it all. And so it'll be interesting to see if one of them wins it. But I actually think the Astros are going back to back, and I think they're going. I think they're going to win their 3rd straight pennant, and I think they're going to go back to back as World Series champions.
Let me ask you another question, Sully. Which conference do you think is better? You might have already answered
Conference?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Or league, because I know you were talking about the feast and famine. Just because when I look at the teams that we don't think are true World Series contenders, the D-backs, Giants, Marlins, Cubs, Brewers, I think those are all really feisty and teams that have a chance of at least making a playoff conversation happening. I look at the American League, it's like, I don't know. After in the Central, it's like the White Sox, Tigers, Royals, I'm not in on, Orioles, Red Sox, the East, I guess, or what's the other division? Oh, the West. I mean, you don't like the Angels, you don't like the Rangers, you don't like the Oakland A's. I just think the middleman tier of teams in the National League is just a lot better than those middleman tiers.
I don't think there's many middleman teams in the National League. I think that you can look up and down the American League and see some teams that are kind of close to each other.
Mhm.
You know, I think there's only one legitimately great team in the American League, and that's Houston. Um, how many terrible teams are there in the American League? The Tigers and the Royals.
And
And
A's.
I think the A's are better than people think, just because
Oh
I
my
think that.
gosh.
And
How can you say all these other teams are minor league teams and you look at the Oakland
fine,
A's and
fine.
they'd
I'll
be
throw the
better?
A's.
I just
I'll
don't
throw the
understand
A's
your
in.
logic,
I'll throw
Sully.
the A's in there. But I don't think there's any team that's as bad as the Reds. I don't think there's any team as bad as the Nationals. I don't think there's any team as bad as the Rockies. I don't think
Ah,
there's any team as bad as the Pirates.
that
Seriously.
you might have to have like a personal bet here. I'll take my NL bottom feeders over the AL bottom feeders.
How do we quantify that?
Just win totals, I guess. We'll take the three worst teams of the NL. You can take the three worst teams of the American League, and
Okay,
I'll take the win total. Yeah.
we'll figure that out. We'll figure that out. And by the way, I just want to while I have all of your attention here, I just want to thank you so much for making Locked On MLB your first listen every day. Have your second listen, obviously, it's going to be Locked On Diamondbacks. For your third listen, have that be
Of course.
Locked On MLB Prospects. The host Lindsey Crosby, he's a prospect encyclopedia, and he's going deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Millard Thomas, we gotta end this.
Yeah, we've been
Not just this
talking here for a
podcast.
while.
We gotta end this friendship. But
Okay. Yeah, disrespect the D-backs. Think the Tigers are better than them.
I didn't know. I think the D-backs have a legit shot at being a wild card team. Okay, you have a legit shot to be a host of a wild card team podcast. So tell people where they can find you.
Ooh, that's right. The Locked On D-backs podcast. You can follow me on Twitter, my personal Twitter at CreatorThomas24. Follow the show account Locked On Diamondbacks just by typing in the little search bar Locked On Diamondbacks, Twitter, Instagram, and of course we're on all your streaming platforms and we're on YouTube. So please hit subscribe on the Locked On Diamondbacks YouTube channel.
Easy for you to say. And I'm at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Doing a couple of heated podcasts with Millard Thomas, doing our ridiculously early predictions. This has been a Locked On MLB, Locked On Diamondbacks crossover. I'm Sully. He's Millard Thomas. Let's fist pump till next week.